Hey, what's going on everyone? Today is a special day because we have the tier list for TFT patch 13.5. It's actually going to be a pretty interesting week at TFT because this weekend there are a couple of regional tournaments that are going on. So I've asked like a couple of the players like what's going to be hot, what's going to be cold in the meta. Obviously, at the very top level, they play like a slightly different game from other people because they're able to execute certain comps better. Some other comps, like for example, a lot of the one cost rerolls, they work really well in lower ratings, but once you get higher and higher up, it becomes a little bit weaker. Family is one example of that, but there are others. But right now, my take for people who are just playing the game, trying to like focus on themselves, right now, I think the best comps are going to be Emissary Sorcerer Swain, Renata Reroll, Heimerdinger Corki Flex, Visionary Heimerdinger, and Scrap Corki. These top comps are going to be critical to know, and while I don't think any of them are necessarily hard forceable right now, or one-trickable, unless you're an absolute animal, just knowing the bare basics of each of these comps is enough to kind of just go for, because you really just need a good start to get into it. Onto the A tier, like the comps I want you all to focus on right now are going to be Enforcer Vi, Sorcerer Zoe, and Rebel Zoe if you get emblems. These three comps are probably one of the stronger emblem comps because they make such great use of it. Scrap, while they can use an emblem, it's not like by any means necessary, and it doesn't like turbocharge the comp. But if you get a Rebel, Sorcerer, or Enforcer emblem, it really does turbocharge the comp in my opinion. And then after that, we have Nocturne Reroll, which relies on artifact items. So only play that if you get that. After that, we have Blackrose Flex, which is just a sorcerer comp. Bruiser Mundo, solid comp if you get free Twitches. Like Twitch, I don't think is that great right now. But the great news is that he is still playable. You just have to kind of piece him together a little bit more, get like better conditions than you normally would. It's like how it's much harder to find a date on February 15th than it is on February 13th. And I'd say Twitch comps right now are going to be in the February 15th category. Next up we have is Ambushers. After that we have Emissary Ambessa Corki, and then a bunch of other comps that you definitely can go, but I think like up here are the ones that you want to focus on the most. So we're gonna go over these more this week. And I also want to tell you all about some of the very special tiers. A lot of people are loving gloves Off Vander, so we're gonna go over how to play that as well. Very, very, very fun comp. But it is situational, but extremely good. It's highly rated, and if you take a look at the Explorer, and check out Vander 3-star with like an Infinity Edge, which is what most people are kind of doing with it right now. You could see that with Bloodthirster 4.17, with Infinity Edge 4.12, it's a very powerful comp. And those are going to be the builds with gloves Off Vander. So very simple stuff to do. It's pretty easy to hit like 3-star 2 costs, but he actually is an absolute monster. Like don't hard force it if you get the augment for it. Like I don't think it's that strong, but it is very, very good. That if you have maybe like good items for it or like one other Vander for it, then go for it for sure. But let's go into the first comp, Emissary Sorcerer. Pretty basic comp. I really like playing this if I get +1 Sorcerer emblem. It's not mandatory by any means, but it's really nice because you see here we only have 8 units on the board right now. So if you are ever able to get like a Tactician's Crown or go level 9, you could go for the 6 Sorcerer build, which is really powerful, or you could just go 6 Sorcerer at level 8 and drop Elise. Sorcerer is really nice because it reduces the damage that enemies deal to you, so it makes the front line a lot more manageable because that's like the weakest part of this comp. You really need good front line with this because it's kind of difficult to play otherwise, but in the back, Swain is incredible. One person asked in the comments last week, like, how does Swain critically strike? They don't see it in his ability. The way you make him do that is through his itemization. So Spear Shojin, great for giving him a lot of cast, because you want him to cast often so that he casts a spell to damage a bunch of enemies. But then you have the Jeweled Gauntlet here, and Jeweled Gauntlet allows your spells to critically strike. Infinity Edge also does the same thing, but Jeweled Gauntlet's better on Swain because it gives ability power instead of attack damage. And then lastly, you have the Guard Breaker to really spice things up a bit. Gives more critical strike chance, so it complements with the Jeweled Gauntlet really well. And since Swain hits a bunch of different units, he's bound to hit someone with a shield, so that's what Guard Breaker does. If you hit someone with a shield, you end up dealing more damage on everything else. So it's just a very nice item combo on Swain, but many other things work. You could go any sort of like generic damage item or damage amp item, such as like Giant Slayer also works, but pretty decent combo here. Belts you want on Garen. He uses all belt items really well. And then in the back, LeBlanc, put your utility items on her. And she could also carry as well if you get her to 2-star. But most of the time, since you're doing a 3-cost reroll because you want Swain 3-star, you're going to be going for a Swain-centric build. That means you don't have time to sometimes hit the LeBlanc, which is a 5-cost unit, or go for like other stuff. So that's like the gist of this comp. You could check out more on the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta, where we have the longest running player run tier list. Next one up we have is Renata Glass reroll. We have Sentinels and Visionary. Personally for me, I'd only play this with the 6 Visionary build because I think 6 Visionary is just like a huge crazy comp right now with the buff it gives, and then you just go for Sentinels, find some other tank. It's either going to be a 3-star 1 or 2 cost unit such as Singe or Rel, or just a 2-star Alawi will do. If you get Visionary Emblem, put it on your Rumble, he gets a mana refund. Very powerful stuff, but in the backline, just focus items on Renata. The tank items, they matter, but they don't matter that much. Just get like generic good tank items. Get like the pure tank items though. Don't get the utility ones as much. Like for example, if I had to choose between Warmogs or like a Ionic Spark, even though Ionic Spark is very nice, I probably would prefer the Warmogs. But to do this comp, you just do a 2-cost reroll. It's really good with Starry Night. Starry Night's augment that is absolutely nuts for reroll comps right now. And this is one of the best options to go for because you just get all the 1 and 2 costs for free, get them all to 3-star. You could honestly get like all 5 of these units to 3-star and then just steamroll everyone after that. If you need a secondary carry, Vex or Morgana will do whoever is 3-star. Personally for me, the way I decide who gets the items is if I have a blue buff, I itemize Morgana. If I have a Shojin, I itemize Vex. I haven't really found that much of a difference between the two, but one thing Morgana does is reduce the effectiveness of shields. So if you find a lot of other people using shields, Morgana is a decent option. Next one up we have is going to be Corki Heimerdinger Flex. This is mainly like an Academy build or a Sentinel build, depending on what you're doing. But Corki is still a very solid unit. He definitely is one of the premier 4-costs right now, but Heimerdinger is no slouch and he is right behind him. So let's check the data on that. I'm going to head over to teamfight.lol, go to champions, and then type in 4-costs. Like right now, Heimerdinger and Corki are pretty good. Like out of all the damage 4-cost units, you have to think of them as like Echo and Vi. They're mainly like hybrids. They're both like tanks and damage dealers at the same time because they're frontliners. So you really have to look at like Corki, Zoe, Heimerdinger, Twitch, and Silco. And right now, like Silco's pretty bad, Twitch okay, but very situational. And then Heimerdinger and Corki are going to be the next ones up, with Zoe in between them. Also can't forget about Ambessa. She is the top one right now, but that's mainly because of the Emissary Sorcerer comp, not necessarily because of Ambessa. So pretty solid in terms of 4-cost damage dealers. Obviously, Alawi going to be the main tank in both versions of this comp because you rely mainly on Sentinels. And to do this comp, you do like a fast 8 strategy or standard leveling, depending on what's happening in your game. To do that, you should definitely check out some of my previous coaching videos during the week because they go into that pretty in depth because it's going to depend on what augments you have, what portal your game is in, and also what type of units you're hitting that game. But generally, like you want to get around like 40 to 50 gold to roll down with on level 8. It depends how good at econ you are. Normally, it's going to happen at like stage 4-1 or 4-2. If you're a bit slower, 4-5 is okay. But all in all, this comp is nice because it uses all sorts of different items. You could use AD items, AP items, and you could cap out with late game legendaries such as Rumble or Jace, and they could use whatever items you built before. And of course, Alawi is going to be holding onto the tank items. Next comp up we have is Scrap Corki. Again, there is the emblem version, but the standard version is fine too. Like, I don't think you really need the emblem version. But the most important part about this comp is getting the level 8, getting all the 4-cost units, and then also getting Rumble. If you see Rumble off Carousel, definitely go for him right away. If not, like, you have to probably go level 9 and hit him there. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units on the board right now. So this is what it would look like at level 9. If you're at level 8, just drop one of the units, probably like Elise or Vi. It depends who you have, because if you do not have Rumble, you could drop Loris. But once you get to level 9, obviously put all the units back in. I know the positioning looks a bit weird, but frontline Corki is pretty solid. He just gets the shield. Sometimes you don't have to put him up there though. Like I see some players do it, some players don't. But generally right now, most people are doing the positioning like this. And it's mainly just because of the scrap shield that you get. So people can attack the Corki. He has a shield. He doesn't actually get harmed. And then he dashes away and keeps attacking. Powder's up near the front just because you want her ability to cast a bit quicker, and then Gangplank in the back because you want his range form instead of his melee form. But pretty simple comp to play. Again, emblem completely optional. I actually think it's only okay on it. It's nice in the early to mid game, but in the late game, it doesn't really matter because it saves you a slot on your team. You don't have to run like Trundle anymore. But obviously the power you get from like a different augment, like definitely is well worth the sauce, right? Next comp up we have are the A tiers. So first one is going to be Enforcer, Vi and Caitlyn. This is a strong vertical comp, like one of the strongest I would say, but a little tricky to play too. Like if you are able to hit everything in the Enforcer comp, such as Caitlyn and 8 Enforcer, then you're going to do very, very well. However, if you can't do that, it's going to be a very, very difficult game and very tricky because of the way the item building works. So for Caitlyn, you want attack damage items. Any of them will do, like Infinity Edge, Shojin. I'm pretty sure blue buff is also good too. Like I built that a couple of times. Yeah, it for sure outperforms Shojin. But the thing is, like, it's hard to build Caitlyn items because if you build a blue buff, who are you putting it on, right? Like no one's going to be great at holding it because normally the person who holds Caitlyn items is going to be a sniper. So not even Shojin can be used that easily, but you could put Shojin on like Twisted Fate or even Maddie and get them to use that item. But then for the other attack damage items, it's going to be on your Zeri most likely. Like I guess Kogmaw could do it if you're running Kogmaw. He could hold like a blue buff or something, but like then he can't hold the attack damage items. So it's a little tricky there. And then in the mid game around like stage 4, you need to focus on like your Vi items plus some semblance of a front line. So it's going to be a little bit tricky building all these items and matching it up because it really revolves around hitting Caitlyn. But then once you get Caitlyn, you can't have no items on her. That doesn't make any sense, right? So I would only play this comp if you are going for like a high econ strategy that allows you to actually hit everything. So if you get like an early Enforcer emblem, maybe you want to take a econ augment on stage 3. One example is like Epoch or Slammin' Plus, you know, like that could help make your journey a little bit easier. But back to the emblem, I would only play this comp with the emblem. Like 6 Enforcer just doesn't quite cut it unless you're an Enforcer like Giga Master. But if that's the case, I don't know why you're looking at a tier list guide because you're probably going to play Enforcer no matter what, right? Like it doesn't matter what I say, doesn't matter what anyone else says. If you're just like an Enforcer expert and don't play any other comps, like you don't need to look at anything, right? Because you already have your plans set up. But next comp up we have is Sorcerer Zoe, another good emblem comp. If you do get the emblem, you just drop like Zyra. And this comp's pretty nice because it gives you additional options when you go for the Sorcerer Emissary build, which most people think is the best build right now. And if you don't get a lot of Swains and can't get Swain 3, this is a very good backup option with Zoe as your main damage dealer. She uses pretty much the same items as your Swain, so that's very nice there. Obviously, LeBlanc's the same thing too. And then instead of Swain being in the back line, you drop him in the front line, put some tank items on him, and call it a day. Decent comp, nothing crazy going on here. Mix in a little Blackrose, mainly just because Vladimir and LeBlanc are Blackrose units. Swain is a form swapper along with Elise, so there just is a lot of synergies that make a lot of sense here. Overall, this comp is pretty fun to play, but I would mainly use it as a backup option to the other Sorcerer build if you don't get a lot of Swains. Next build up we have is Rebel Zoe, and this comp is pretty nice because it is again an emblem comp. I would only play it with the emblem, by the way. It's too risky and too weak to play it without it, but if you're looking to like win the lottery in TFT, this is one of the comps to go for if you get an early Rebel emblem, because similar to the Enforcer comp, you really need the legendary unit. That's going to be Jinx here, but you have the added bonus of hitting 7 Rebels being a lot easier. So hitting 8 Enforcer, you need like all the Enforcers plus the emblem, but in the Rebel build, like you just need a couple of the Rebel units. You don't need that many. And if you have the emblem, it's even easier, right? And so many units can use the emblem because it gives all sorts of stats. It gives attack damage, it gives ability power, and it also gives max health. So literally like someone will make use of those stats. Doesn't matter who you put it on. I mean, it does matter who you put it on. What I mean is that you have a lot of different options on who to put it on. So definitely like a very fun comp to try out. Jinx obviously makes things explode, so that's fun to see. But most importantly, like on carousels, go for bows. Like I did a VOD review of someone submitting a coaching video before, and they did not grab bows off the carousel when going for Rebel, and you absolutely need it because you could use it on both Zoe and Jinx, and it's just like the most popular item in this comp. Next build up we have is Quickstriker Nocturne. Again, you really just want artifact items on Nocturne. If we take a look at the data in the Explorer tool, Nocturne at 3-star, we have it at Diamond Plus right now. You could change it to like Master Plus, like Emerald, like whatever you want, like you could customize in there, which I think is pretty cool. And then we could take a look at what items give him the best win rates. And that's gonna be like all the artifact items pretty much. Like it turns in from like a 4.04 to like a 3.18 with Sniper's Focus. Like that's absolutely incredible, right? Like obviously like we could change the sample size to 1,000 plus to get rid of some of the radiant items, but it's absolutely ridiculous on him, right? Like all these +1 range items are just directly at the top. Compare this to, let's think of like another 2-cost reroll unit, Renata. We went over Renata before, right? How do you think like some artifact items will do on this Renata 3-star in terms of improving the win rate? Well, first of all, she's already pretty high at 4.19, but if we take a look here and go to artifact items, like no one even like builds them on him, right? Like obviously Mana Zane's really good, but she gets really good results even without the Mana Zane. And that's pretty much like the only item people are gunning for. Like all the other ones suck. So if we compare Nocturne to Renata, where Renata gets like good results with like all the other items that exist, like she pretty much like gets 4.18 with Shojin, Archangels, Nashers, like all these like generic items that people already build. If we compare that to the Nocturne, it's like apart from Infinity Edge, like the most popular items on him are going to be Bloodthirster, Hand of Justice, Titan's Resolve, and Quicksilver, and like only a few of these improve the average placement of 4.04, right? Like Infinity Edge is good, Bloodthirster completely kills it, because if you have a Bloodthirster, that means you do not have one of these other items, because why do you need a Bloodthirster if he's nice and safe in the back rows? And Hand of Justice is only good because you built a Bloodthirster, and Bloodthirster gives a lot of critical strike. Hand of Justice gives even more critical strike, so they kind of work hand in hand together. But like Titan's Resolve, no. Quicksilver is only good because of the same reason the Hand of Justice is good, and then like all the other items, it's like kind of whatever, you know? Like they wouldn't really work that well without the +1 range items. So that's kind of one thing you want to keep in mind whenever you play Nocturne. You want to play around the artifact items, and there are a couple of different builds. Obviously you want to stick to the 4 Quickstriker in pretty much every version, but there's a Sentinel and the Automata version. Both of them work, both of them are fine. Like people are liking the Sentinel versions right now a little bit more, but pretty much the Sentinel version is going to be a bit better right now, just because it gives you a bit stronger front line, because that's really all you need. Like Nocturne's going to be doing all of your damage. Like some people like itemizing Twisted Fate, and yeah, that's pretty good too, but you're mainly just needing the Sentinels for the front line, and the traits just kind of complement that in this way. But the next comp up we have is going to be Blackrose Flex. This is the same as Sorcerers, so we don't really need to go into that. Like all the other versions, like they're playable, but it's mainly the Sorcerer version that you should be worried about. Bruiser Mundo, classic Twitch build. If you get Bruiser Emblem, really strong. Get the Rage Blade on your Twitch and he's going to be pumping up. And then eventually doing some carrying. It'll take him a while to get going, but the great part about this comp is that Mundo and Twitch, no one's buying them right now, so you could get them for free, and it makes the comp a lot easier to play, but pretty standard leveling stuff there. Ambushers, very popular comp. I like this one a lot, but I feel like it's very like hit or miss. Like Smeech either goes ham or he does nothing. But the best part about this Ambusher comp is that there are a lot of different options to go for, so whether you are hitting a lot of Camille's, whether you're hitting a lot of Smeeches or Echoes, there's a version for you out there, and all of them are pretty good. Like Smeech is going to be the best one. I'd say Smeech is A+, the other two are maybe like A-, but overall, like you're going to be getting a good game no matter what. The only important thing you need is having a lot of Hand of Justices in this comp. Like I wouldn't go this comp without it, because it is just that important. That's gonna pretty much cover most of the basic comps of this patch. Like there's also Emissary, Corki, and Ambessa, which I like a lot, as everyone knows who has been following this channel. One of my favorite comps, but right now all the units are very contested, so it's a little bit tricky to hit. But let's go over that Gloves Off Vander build, because I want to go over that really quickly. It's pretty easy, right? You get the Gloves Off Vander build, and then you get a bunch of 3-stars, and then you get your Vander to 3-star, and then put Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, and Hand of Justice on him. That's going to be a very solid item combo because it gives him a lot of sustain and a bit of damage. And then you could itemize as your secondary carry, maybe like Powder in the back line, or literally anyone else in your team. You could even like level up later, put in some legendaries to play around with. But Gloves Off Vander, very solid stuff if you're able to get him to 3-star very quickly. So I like to do this if I start the game off with like an IE already, or like an Hand of Justice already, because that's going to make the build that much easier to go for, because you need 2 gloves and 2 swords in this comp to build all the items. And I'd say like even like a 1-star Vander, he could do some carrying in the early game with proper items, but obviously you want him 2-star as soon as possible. But in stage 3, he's an absolute monster, and he'll get you a bunch of top 4s if you go for this Gloves Off Vander build. Very fun stuff. I think it's probably one of the best hero augments right now, but a lot of the other ones are pretty playable. Like we could look at the summary up top, but like this comp's really easy to play. You just do 2-cost reroll and hit him 3-star. And if you see a lot of the other 1-cost units, you obviously go for them too. But For the other hero augments or like other weird stuff, like trait reunion, menaces pretty good. Like some people say menaces is like the absolute best thing ever. All these other ones are martial law, bronze for life, why not both, brutal revenge, trolling trundle. I'd say all these are very playable. The rest of them, like, they're still pretty good. Some people really like Crimson Pack Vladimir. I think he's pretty decent. The only issue is that it's very item dependent. You really need like the Rage Blade on your Vladimir, and he's pretty unplayable without it. Built different, seen better days. What could have been? All these other ones, like, they're okay. Like, you definitely can play them, but it's not like, oh, like, I should like really go for this and have no regrets, like this very special tier over here. But I'm gonna leave you all with a bit of a shorter video today. Right now, I'd say the way to approach the patch is gonna be like AP item, I think, are better than AD items right now, because like the Swain comp, all the visionary stuff, like there's also like Renata reroll here that I need to add. Let me just do that right now. But pretty much like all the AP comps, I think they outnumber the AD comps right now. Nothing wrong with AD, like Scrap very good still. I mean, we could look down here, there are like a bunch of different Corki builds you could try out. Obviously Enforcers are AD, so there still are a couple of different options, but for me, like if I had to do defaults without any like crazy augment combos, like I just go AP, go for some Emissary build, or do like Renata reroll. Those are going to be like probably the main bread and butters of this patch, if I were you at least. But that's going to be it for me for this video. If you all enjoyed this, let me know down in the comments below, and also ask any questions you have. I try to get to as many as I can every week, and I know a lot of people have been asking about like the coaching videos and how to get their games in. Really the best time to do it is not now, but do it when a new patch comes out, because like on the first like couple days of the patch, like I get like tons of different games, and obviously I can't go over all of them, right? So I generally do like a first come first serve basis, as long as you follow all the rules in the form. But yeah, you could go to the website and go to the coaching session, and you just have to fill out this form here. But apart from that, that's going to be it from me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.